In recent Formula One news, Sergio Perez is capable of winning the home Grand Prix, according to Max Verstappen, who has said he won't give his teammate the victory or any kind of gift for that matter. Why did he say this? Well, let's take a look. Also, stay tuned to also find out other need-to-know F1 news that you most certainly do not want to miss, like what Daniel Ricciardo has recently said on a podcast, and one record Verstappen can't seem to conquer. First up, legendary F1 driver Max Verstappen has recently claimed that he will be giving Sergio Perez no kind of present in terms of helping him win. But why? Well, here's what he had to say. Sergio Perez is capable of winning the home Grand Prix all by himself, according to Max Verstappen, who has said he won't give his teammate the victory or any kind of helping hand. Verstappen has little left to prove in the final 3 races of this season after helping Red Bull win the Constructors Championship and winning the Drivers' Championship in Austin. His only objective is to surpass Sebastian Vettel and Michael Schumacher in terms of the most race victories in a single season. Now, due to all of his recent wins, this has led many to wonder if he might be acting charitably. Maybe he's willing to help his teammate out? However, when Verstappen was asked if he might be ready to give the race win to his teammate Perez in what is the Mexican driver's home Grand Prix, Verstappen explained, "It's not about presenting gifts. The squad is content as long as we come in first and second." He continued, "I mean, Checo was good enough to win races on his own." He then explained that doing things that way is far more satisfying. Of course, having your own Grand Prix is just an amazing feeling anyway, and I'm sure he will do well. So it appears he will not be helping out his teammate and toning down his performance, and honestly, we wouldn't expect anything less of the legendary driver. On a similar note, remarks have been made by Perez, who indicated that he did not want any gifts from his teammate, aspiring to win the upcoming Grand Prix against Verstappen performing at his typical A game. Red Bull has recently succeeded at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, winning 3 of the last 4 races there. Verstappen is hoping to continue his recent form this weekend, even though the championship is officially over this time. As of right now, Verstappen leads Charles Leclerc, who is in second place, by 124 points heading into the weekend. Perez is 2 points behind the Ferrari driver, but could easily make his way up the ranks if he takes out the Grand Prix. In other Formula One news, Max Verstappen doesn't really understand the concept of sprint races. Here's what he had to say on the topic. Before changing the format for this year, F1 introduced its sprint race model at 3 races in 2021. This year, the format includes the return of giving the pole position to the driver who finished first in qualifying. The sprint race results then determine the final starting grid for Sunday's race. This weekend, F1 will conduct its penultimate sprint of the 2022 season in Brazil before extending to 6 events the following year, which are still to be determined. Verstappen, a 2-time world champion, said he prefers the traditional weekend schedule and that drivers tend to be cautious since there was a chance they may wreck their cars or fall to the back of the pack in the Saturday sprint races. Verstappen explained that during these sprints, the main focus is don't get damaged, make sure you stay in the top 3. Well, that's how he has been approaching these sprint races. He continued, "For me, it's not really a race because you go into the main race and you know there are way more points available anyway, you just risk a little bit more there." Instead, Verstappen thought F1 should stick to the main race instead of throwing an extra sprint into the weekend format. Verstappen said, "I don't get what the issue is with that. We've had so many thrilling races, so you don't need to add 1/3 of a race distance." The further expansion of the sprint race format, which will take place in 2023, has all received the backing of F1 teams and was approved by the FIA at the most recent World Motorsport Council meeting. Before the Grand Prix on Sunday, sprints were held this year in Imola and the Red Bull Ring, providing varying amounts of on-track excitement. However, Lewis Hamilton, the Mercedes driver, believed that F1 needed to be extremely selective about which venues it chose to hold sprint races, favoring those with easier overtaking. But he loved the format since it was different. But we want to know your thoughts. Do you like the sprint race format? Is it effective? Or does it simply wreck cars before the real races even begin? Now, on the topic of Verstappen, despite breaking various records this year alone, it appears that there is one that he just cannot seem to conquer. What is it? Let's take a look. Max Verstappen has won 14 Formula One Grand Prix races so far in the 2022 season alone, which is truly unprecedented. The record of 13 victories, shared by Michael Schumacher and Sebastian Vettel, was surpassed with the Red Bull driver's triumph in the Mexican Grand Prix as he consolidated his campaign supremacy. Given that he presently leads Sergio Perez by 136 points in the Drivers' Championship, he has a chance to record the biggest gap between P1 and P2 in history. Verstappen needs to outperform Perez by 20 points during the final 2 race weekends in order to break Vettel's all-time record of 155 points, which he achieved in his 2013 campaign against Fernando Alonso. But Verstappen appears to be unable to shatter one particular record. But what is it? Well, the overall number of race victories in a season has become simpler to aim for due to the F1 calendar's recent expansion. Given that there are more races now than there were in Michael Schumacher's era, Mick Schumacher even stated after Mexico that he anticipated his father's record to be broken. In light of this, the metric of total percentage wins in a season has gained additional value in assessing a driver's performance. The current statistic shows how Verstappen will fall short of breaking a record that has stood since 1952, the third year of the World Championship, despite winning 14 of 20 races in 2022, and perhaps even 16 of 22. Verstappen currently has a 70% victory rate after winning 14 of his first 20 races. If he wins in Brazil and Abu Dhabi for a total of 16 out of 22, this will raise his percentage to 72.72%, moving him into second place on the list after Alberto Ascari's mark of 75%, which was set back in 1952. Verstappen would have required 17 victories for the season to surpass Ascari's total, therefore his score is likely to stand. The fact that Ascari also participated in the Indy 500 that year makes his record exceptional. F1 drivers didn't bother making the trip to Indiana during the first 10 seasons of the World Championship, although Ascari did it with Ferrari in 1952. Now, Ascari won every race from Belgium 1952 to Belgium 1953, except the 1953 Indianapolis 500. The streak came to an end in France in 1953 when Mike Hawthorne won the first World Championship for a British driver, while Ascari finished fourth. So the big question remains, do you think Verstappen will be able to break this record during his F1 career? Let us know your thoughts. Finally, speaking of F1, Daniel Ricciardo recently went on a popular podcast and explained that pay drivers don't deserve the amount of criticism they currently receive. So-called pay drivers, according to Daniel Ricciardo, don't deserve the abuse they receive because they still need to be quite gnarly. The Australian driver feels that fans of the sport have a negative perception of paid drivers, or drivers who may not be the greatest on the grid but provide financial incentives to teams for hiring them through their own money, that of sponsors or that of family. On Your Mom's House podcast, Ricciardo participated in a discussion about his own Formula One career and also the topic of pay drivers. The host made fun of drivers who are on the grid because their daddies bought them a team, mostly aiming their jab at Aston Martin's Lance Stroll, whose father, Lawrence, bought the old Racing Point team in 2018. The talk then shifted to the subject of paid drivers. Ricciardo, however, believes that drivers whose entry into Formula One has been aided by their financial support do not merit the amount of criticism they receive because they still need to possess nearly the same degree of talent and success to be considered an F1 driver. Ricciardo explained that you must spend thousands of dollars to get into the sport, not even F1, just to go-kart as a youngster, as opposed to hundreds if you play football, where all you really need is a pair of boots, which is very true. Race car driving or anything of the sort is one of the more, if not the most expensive sports you can take part in. So in order for the driver's sponsors to continue supporting him or her, Ricciardo argued that the driver must still possess a lot of pace. Otherwise, they would not continue to make the necessary financial commitments. He explained that at the end of the day, if you're driving until you get to like F2 or F1, you're still putting your own body on the line. But what do you think? Do drivers who pay to be there truly deserve the opportunity? Or is it simply more of a money grab for the franchise? And there you have it, everything you need to know about Max Verstappen and why he is not giving Sergio Perez any kind of helping hand. Additionally, we also touched on other need-to-know F1 news. Now make sure to let us know your thoughts down below, and as always, thanks for watching.